Hello, Tanya Basu, my wife,
Hello, Avi Setton.
producer, production manager, production designer. You did a lot for this movie, uh, and I think a lot of people would be interested to know what your journey was like on this project. I should mention that our 3.5-month-old son, I believe, is right next to you, so he might be making noises throughout this.
Very happy right now, but yes, he will probably be making noises.
Well, maybe that's an interesting place to start is that we knew you were pregnant when we were filming this about a year ago, but we did not tell anyone. Uh,
Yes.
that must have been an interesting. Uh, I know what it was like for me, but for you to have to like kind of contain that secret from your brother who was on set, and just not be able to. There's certain things you couldn't eat, and we had to be very like sort of I guess crafty in how we played it, so that
Yeah, I think I was 1 month pregnant at that time. And luckily, I didn't really have much morning sickness. So I was able to hide a lot of that. But yes, at this point, anyone who's watching this will know that the cast and crew was all men. So it
yes.
wasn't exactly something I could talk about, but also in a strange way. I don't think anyone had any idea. Um, I was extremely sleepy, so I would take random naps. And I think there was one night that was awkward because I think everyone got beers, which obviously I could not get beers, or I could not get a beer with you guys. And so I think I made up some excuse about how I was cutting down on drinking, which was kind of funny because it was, um, I remember, I forget if it was Trevor or my brother. They were like, it's just one beer. And I was just like, no, I really need to cut down on drinking. They were like, we haven't seen you drink at all in the past week. So I was like, I need to work on that.
There were multiple conversations on set that I remember. So we met like 8.5 years ago in New York. We've been married for 4.5 years. And I think both Trevor and Tim on set, I had conversations with them about like, hey, are you gonna have kids? And I was like, I don't know, we're still figuring it out. But there were definitely some interesting conversations where that did come up, and I had to like kind of play it off. But uh, did you ever think you would be working on a movie?
No, I did not. So I don't know if this has been talked about in previous conversations, but I am not film related in my work life. I am a journalist in my work life. And my entire film knowledge, I think it would be safe to say, for the most part, comes from interacting with you. And um, our relationship over the years has made me more aware and more knowledgeable about film in a way that I think there's no way I could have been without us, living together, talking about it being your profession. So, no, I would never have thought I would work on a movie set. And I think it was a very interesting and important experience for me.
Well, the interesting thing is when we met, it was like very much a time in my life where I was kind of walking away from my film life. I mean, obviously there were elements still there. And I do feel like ultimately you are the one who like made this movie happen. I think very much about like we had a dinner or even just like drinks or something at the
Mhm.
Shelby. It was like it was the moment when we were like it was like we were on the fence. I think I was more on the fence than you. Uh,
Mhm.
I was very apprehensive about making a movie because it's kind of been this thing that's like haunted me for my whole life because I've written all these scripts and I never actually made a movie and I tried to make one a couple years earlier and that didn't work out and I was just like I don't know if I can do this again. And I remember very decisively like that moment when we were like, okay, we're gonna do this, and we booked the Airbnb, I think, right then and there. It was like
Mhm.
the Airbnb that was the set and the house for the four actors. Um, what made you? feel like it was necessary to kind of push me to go through with this.
I think at that point, I think since the night we met, you had been talking about how making a movie was your lifelong dream and your goal. And so I think that it was something I knew was probably the most important thing to you, if not one of the most important things to you in terms of being able to achieve in your life. And I had seen how hard you had worked on writing this script, how promising you felt it was. I don't even think we had the actors really picked out at that point. I think you had sort of a vague idea of certain people who actually didn't end up working out, and you had an idea about what the vision for this house was. But I think a lot of that was really sketched out over the the preceding subsequent, I don't know, the following couple months. And I think it's funny that you say that, like, we did it over drinks. I think I was just realizing, I'm like, that's probably one of the last times I drink um, at that moment. But it was my birthday, actually. I don't know if you remember this. And we went to get drinks. And I think that somehow the conversation turned to, like, what is this upcoming year going to look like for us?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I was like, you really need to make this movie. You really need to, you have the script written out. You have an idea. At that point, you had definitely an idea of what it was going to look like, what the, you know, sort of filming schedule would potentially be, how intense it would be. Um, and it just felt like there was really nothing holding you back besides sort of, as it should with any big decision, kind of the whole fear of like, what could go wrong? Or can I pull this off? And I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was like liquid courage or what, but I think a part of it was we both sort of realized this was possible and this was something that you kind of had to do so that you could finally get started, sorry, get started on the dream that you had, had long before we had even met.
Yeah, it's funny that you like even picked up on that because I really feel like the last decade really I kind of pushed that aside and I feel like for many years I did not I kind of it used to be my dream to make a movie and I really kind of pushed that aside and explored other possible paths. But yeah, I came back around and I think it was very important and it was very astute. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly for you to notice that like it was very you were perceptive in saying that this was like the thing that I needed to do. Um, and yeah, I mean, so like you were essentially the first. Well, we didn't really. I think the big hesitation was I didn't really have a budget. I didn't have a crew. So you essentially came on board as the first crew member, as a producer. I don't even know if you really were aware of what you were doing was producing. Um, but I imagine like I mean, as a production designer, I think you actually made very conscious decisions. You had very thoughtful costume choices that I think you very much were like the production designer. You very much were part the production manager. You were like responsible for all the meals. You like really made the production move during production. And then before production, you really did design costumes. You helped design the set. You did do these roles, and as a producer, very much like helped the whole project come to fruition. Um, like, were you aware that you were doing these roles? Like, how did you? I don't know. Maybe a good example is just like costumes, because I know you put a lot of thought into the evolution of like Charlie's costumes, for example. Uh, how did you know to like think like a since we didn't have a production design team, I guess we could just say a production designer or a costume designer.
I didn't. I didn't really know. I think. Mhm. I think a lot of it just actually came from talking to you about, I think whenever I had watched movies prior to our meeting, that I had watched it primarily for narrative and not necessarily for like the props, the costumes, and like the quiet story that they were telling. And I think that I became more aware of that as the years went on. So I think by the time we started actually filming this movie and thinking about what everything looked like outside of the story, you had sort of like primed my thinking to think about costumes, to think about props, to think about what the backstory of Charlie and Travis and Doug and Alan would be beyond just what they spoke on screen and perhaps their emotions on screen. So I think that that probably informed more than anything costumes. With regards to whether I understood what I was doing was production design and being a producer, no, I did not. I don't think I had a firm grasp on what it meant to be a producer. My prior understanding of being a producer was purely financial, was that, the person who either invested in the movie or helped bring the movie to life in some way by bringing that investment in was the producer. Um, I don't think I had an understanding that the producer actually, which I guess is in the name of the title, they produced the movie. Um, but I didn't understand what that meant. And so this was a very on the ground sort of training for that when it comes to, because obviously you were the director, you were the person who wrote the story, you brought the story and the movie to life. Um, I don't, I didn't realize until this movie was being made that there were all these other elements that were required and necessary for a movie to actually be brought to life. People had to be fed, people had to be costumed, people had to be, uh, brought to certain places and housed. And that obviously was not something you could handle at that time. So, um, it was an interesting experience in terms of really understanding what the different roles on a movie set were. I think we still have this conversation where I'm like, what is this role? And not just being a producer, but the various aspects of being on the camera team versus, you know, the other production team. So I'm still learning, to be honest.
Yeah, this is probably just about as unconventional a movie set as you would ever see. I think producer in general is like can get nebulous.
Yeah.
Because I think generally the financial uh, association with the producer is usually an executive producer, but executive producer in TV is often different than executive producer in movies, independent movies, and then you just throw our movie where it's just like um, literally you and your brother were my entire production crew. So like
Mhm.
producing becomes a lot of different things. Um, but yeah, but I think one of the things that I've felt that you, other than like, yeah, so in most cases, like there would be a whole crew. We would, location scouting would be somebody would be responsible for that. But like you
Yeah.
did, so we kind of clumped into a lot of stuff into like what producing was. But production design, yeah, usually you'd have a full team. Um, but I think one of the more interesting things is the thought that you put into Charlie's evolution of costumes that I don't think I would have thought of. Um,
Oh, yeah. I guess you had asked that in a previous question. I didn't really answer it.
what's up?
Um, should I go ahead?
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious, like what made you think of that? Because that was one of those, like it's like having those teams, having a production design team, for example, is extremely useful to a director. And there's always things that the director is never going to think of, and you were able to do a lot of that uh, from a production design standpoint. And one of the things that I think was really effective was Charlie's costumes.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, this is very excited about it. I think in the script we see how, so this was even prior to us filming, and I think the filming really brought this out, where you see this sort of like um kind of spiraling of Charlie's mind and him realizing that his life was not as in control as he thought it was, at least in the beginning. And so we did a light to dark sort of costuming progression. So you see Charlie in the beginning with really, I mean, it's not really bright, but more pastel, lighter colors that sort of speak to him being in a more stable place. And then as the movie goes on and Charlie starts to really face the issues that he has in the house with his relationships with other people, you see the shirts specifically, and then also the pants get darker, get more wrinkled, get less, get more disheveled. I suppose it's like important for us to say that we got pretty much everything from garage sales and flea markets.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was really important for us to get that really lived in look because Charlie was obviously someone who would not be wearing business shirts or things that were really ironed. He works from home. He is struggling financially in life. He's trying to get his footing. He shares an apartment. So he clearly doesn't really have the means or the lifestyle to justify a certain kind of look. So we were really, I mean, that was kind of actually the fun part of this. Oh. Sorry. Um, it was the fun part of this was like scouring these garage sales. It was summertime when we were doing this, so that it worked in our advantage. And we went to Quakertown. I think it's called Quakertown Flea Market, or I might be misnaming it.
Quakertown Farmers Market that had the flea market. I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was one of the like yeah, this is
got
now
the trunks
beyond
there.
like I was gonna say like Travis was one of the like key. He had so many props and costumes and like just trying to figure out how to do that was a lot of fun. But I feel like we struck gold at that flea market because I was looking
Yeah,
on eBay for because the idea the comedy that I thought of like when Travis arrives was the only thing I could point to was I think it's Beetlejuice when Catherine O'Hara
yes,
arrives at the house.
yes.
It's just like a stack of luggage. And I was like, that's how Travis should arrive. Um, and yeah, we were just looking for like giant pieces of luggage and like giant trunks. And I was looking on eBay and there were like hundreds of dollars and impossible to ship. But we went to this farmer's market or flea market, whatever, like 45 minutes away and just
Mhm.
found all these like disgusting trunks.
Really disgusting. We were killing bugs for like months afterward to the point where I think on set we were just like, we don't even want to touch this. It was so gross. But we really did strike gold. I'm gonna just like
You could take
read
them.
that.
I can't hear
Yeah.
them, so you know.
Okay, good. Um,
We are sitting across from each other for those watching.
yes,
Like,
we are actually like maybe 20 feet away from each other. Um, but yeah, I still remember that man who sold us the trunks too, because he felt like a old school pirate.
well, I
I
also
mean,
think they had been there
yeah,
for years. I got the sense like he was like nobody
nobody ever wants this.
so confused as to why we wanted to buy these trunks from him.
Yeah, they were peeling at the sides. Like I said, they were probably like insect eggs in them and insects. They were really, really gross to touch and really, really like actually one of them was broken and like the guy did not hide the fact that it was broken. We actually had to bring like a trolley to the car, and our car was is a very small compact car. So we had these two trunks that we like put into our car, and it subsequently made the entire trunk area really dusty. And I had to like go in with a vacuum and actually like scrub it off later on. But those were the kinds of things that were so important to like developing the character. And I think we even developed the character as we walked through the flea market. I think that
Yeah,
was also where we got all those cassettes. There were just all these like people who were selling these things that I think would otherwise have gone unnoticed, but were so important to kind of creating this feel of, um, I think what we were trying to do is like, yes, this is an sort of alternate reality where someone could have an AI husband, but it's also very much in the now, and yet also has this like anachronistic quality to it. So you see Charlie walking by the typewriter store, you see him listening to cassettes, you see him listening to the little what's that called? Not the cassette player. I'm losing the word.
The player.
Yeah, it's the portable one though. I think there's like an actual word for it. Um, yes, Walkman, which I actually kept from set because I thought it was so cool. But like these things that sort of created this contrast between future and past and present, um, which I don't think we could have found really anywhere else. And I think a lot of the production design and the production discussions sort of took shape while we were doing these things. Like, would Charlie wear this? Would Travis wear this?
Yeah.
We found a lot of pretty much Travis's costumes and the zanier things were just like things that we laughed at. The paintings that hung in the house,
Yeah.
we would just be like, I don't know how much of that you touched on in previous conversations, but the idea that the only women on the film set were basically these sort of Victorian era like paintings of women that hung around the house and how they all sort of had this smirk on their face or this sort of like you can't be serious kind of look. And I mean that's all flea markets or things that I'm looking up because the woman with the fish who hangs in the dining room is your grandmother's, not a painting she personally painted, but it was in her garage. And I loved it immediately. And I brought it and I have had it in my office. And we were like, we should have this woman also on set. Um,
And yeah, I think, and I don't know if the American Woman, and I don't know if I ever shot that. I don't, it wasn't in my cut. I don't know if it's actually gonna end up in the end cut, but yeah, like props like that. And the, the one that your mom made.
yeah,
There were a lot, there was, well, first I want to address like that, just that flea market was like, I feel like just like we did so much came to life in that flea market. I think that like those trunks were so important to bring. I talked to Trevor a little bit about this where like that scene when he arrives with those trunks was like I mean it was the first scene we shot with him. And I think if there was a scene I could reshoot, it would be that because I didn't know like how much physical comedy he was gonna bring. Um and I feel like it was it was the second scene we shot. And the first scene we shot, we had reshot at the end. And that second scene, I never got to like reshoot. And I think if I could just capture a little bit more of that physical comedy of how Trevor worked with like with those
yeah,
trucks, it was just there was something like magical about like Trevor's or Travis's, I guess, arrival. And a lot of that came from that prop shopping. But something that as a designer that I haven't really talked to with anyone is and I think it's interesting that you were the only woman on set. Uh, Julia, who I believe I'm talking to soon, is the only woman in post-production. I mean, it's only a small crew. There's only, I think, 10 people involved in this movie, period. But you were the only woman in production. But the absence of women in this film was like a very, very big topic for us that it's never really spoken about in the movie at any
Mhm.
point. But
But we talked about it quite a bit. And I think a lot of people don't realize, well, might not realize that. I don't know if they will, but it's something that you and I had a lot of discussion about.
yeah,
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think it's something that is very important to emphasize. I think a lot of people might say, like, oh, this movie is only about men or only features men. But I think that you and I had really long conversations about um, why that is and what the role of these paintings would be and what sort of like society has created the sorts of men that are depicted in your film.
yeah, I think there are these two things specifically. One, the absence of women in the film, and two is that Charlie's like yes, his partner is AI, but he also has this like I guess analog quality or like by listening to cassettes and like he's very like old school, I guess you would say in a lot of ways, where he's not I feel like in the depictions of like AI partnerships that have come in films before. It's usually the whole like the character feels very futuristic in general or is very much embracing modern technology. Charlie's not really like that. And I kind of like that. I don't know, like these are both things that I don't know that I can articulate, but I think there is a quality there that I hope audiences can like get something out of. I think there's a lot of depth to the fact that Charlie it makes Charlie a little bit more of like an everyman, I think, and it makes that relationship a little bit more relatable, I think, by making him not just like super technology embracing. And the absence of women, I think, is like uh I don't know. It's yeah, it's one of these things that I think it's something we had to talk about, and it's something that needed to be addressed, and I hope it like comes through in the right way. And I it's something I still don't know how to articulate as to like did we handle it well enough with just the design, but it's in the scenes with like Charlie and Trevor when they're like kind of slowly coming together, this like very very subtle questionable homoerotic relationship, like lots of these things would not be possible, I think, without like the sort of absence of women, yet very much depicted in like what's hanging on the walls.
Yeah, I think very much depicted on what's hanging on the walls, and it's sort of um, there's a reason why a lot of it is not spoken of or said or presented. So it's spoken through the absence of it as well.
Yeah,
That's kind of
yeah,
the way I read it. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes not mentioning something can speak louder than trying.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we were able to tackle that.
Yeah, I hope so. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, all right. Well, there's a few questions for you from people who worked on the film.
Okay.
Okay, so Julia, who is has been working on this film from the very beginning of post-production,
Mhm.
co-producer and co-editor. She says, having never been on a film set before, what were your expectations going into it?
I think we sort of touched on this earlier, but I think that um I don't think I had expectations. I know that I've seen film sets depicted on screen, and it's everyone wearing black, everyone sort of doing certain very like um detailed roles in a very specific way. The director just like waltzing around and telling people what to do, which obviously this set was not at all like that. Everyone was wearing multiple hats. Um, we weren't wearing black all the time. And it was just a very, uh, obviously my brother and I did not have any film set experience. So we were sort of learning on the go. We had no concept of how every part really worked together until maybe the second or third day when we sort of got in a groove.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't really have expectations, and I don't know if that was helpful or not. I think that I just sort of walked into it knowing, okay, this is the week that we're filming, and I've planned as much as I can, and let's just go.
Yeah, I think yeah. Nobody really Luke is the probably the only person, I guess Trevor a little bit, who's ever been on a film set other than like me before. So I
Yeah.
can't stress just how much this was not really a film set, but I think it really worked, not a typical film set. And I think that that really worked uh,
Mhm.
in its advantage because you guys did not come at it with expectations, and we were able to create something really unique. I think Luke helped me like keep some professionalism where it was just like, okay, this is like traditionally how we do things, and I think that that came alive. But yeah, you guys just, I think because of that, I was very worried that it could have gone very, very poorly. but
Mhm.
you guys those of you who did not have film set experience really like picked stuff up on the spot. You and I were planning for like months, so um, I feel like I was able to like prep you a little bit, like your brother like flew in like the day before and like suddenly just from like watching like learned how to do sound and helped me set up lights and camera. Like it was pretty incredible how like quickly we all got into a groove. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay, so Ishai, my brother, who's the production
I didn't have
advisor.
this question.
Two more questions. Yeah. Ishai says, what was you might have touched on this a little bit. What was the biggest problem during shooting that you had to solve? And do you want to make another movie or is this it?
Problem during shooting. I don't know if there were problems. We really planned ahead a lot, and I'm a natural planner. So for me, it was really important to have like I had a calendar set out. I remember uh we had the kitchen covered with basically exactly what time everything would be happening, who was involved in which scene, what was the time for meals. I think yes, that's probably very like anal of me, but I think that helped keep things moving. And there were things that came up. We had shooting one night until 3 in the morning because, we really were in it, we were feeling it, and obviously that was not something I could have, put down on the schedule. So I think we just ran with it, which is actually like very anti-me. You know that very well. So I think that in terms of problems on set, I wouldn't say there were really any. I know that sounds crazy, but I think that I guess the one mistake that you and I sort of talk about a lot is kind of the scene with Doug in his hospital gown.
So minor though.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we wish we had made it look more worn. Um, that's the only minor, very light issue, I
Yeah.
think.
But like for
But
context, like so for Travis, he had to wear like white underwear, and we're trying to find like I guess like Fruit of the Loom like white underwear from like the 90s. There's like a very specific, and we had to like get it on eBay. It was quite hard to find, and I was like, well, it can't look like brand new underwear. So we spent like days like leaving it out in the rain and like making it worn. But the one thing we forgot to do for costumes was Doug's hospital gown. Maybe people are watching this. Hopefully we've edited this scene in a way where you don't notice it too much. But it does look a little like straight out of the bag, like folded and creased. We didn't think to like make that a little bit worn. But there's always the argument that like if you go to a hospital, they are going to give you a new gown. I don't know
yes,
how
that
creases.
was the thinking I think I went in with. But yeah, arguably Doug's also been rolling around in that gown for hours at that point. So um
But
and
that's like,
smearing blood on him. I guess that was also a weird thing because that blood got on a lot of like, stuff he was having or he was wearing. We were still shooting scenes. So it's just like, uh, Chris, you got to go take a shower because there's blood all over you in scenes that we're going to shoot now that don't require blood or shouldn't involve blood. So that was a messy scene, I suppose, is a way to put it.
it's
But yeah,
such a minor thing, and Chris and Trevor just like their performances are so good in that scene. Like that, I think and we have it all in close up. It's just like I think it almost doesn't even matter that we captured that scene really well. That yeah.
I think there was a second part to that question. I forgot what it was.
I will say there was like one or two other problems, but I don't think you were involved. But like our boom mic stopped working on the first day, so
Oh, yeah.
that was something your brother and I had to really work through. And you had to go to Best Buy at some point and get a new XLR cord, and there were little issues here and there, but yeah, surprisingly nothing crazy at all. Uh, do you want to make another movie, or is this it?
I don't think it's um I don't think it's it. I also feel like I certainly learned a lot on this set. And I think that I would be willing to do something more in the future, but I also feel like I don't really think this was the typical experience, and so I'm not sure I actually got the real like um and when I say real, not that this was not a real set, but more like I did not have the experience that I'm sure 99% of producers, production designers, um, whatever number of hats I wore, um, have had on a film set. So I'm not sure I actually can answer that question because I'm not sure yeah, I think I would be willing to. And it seems like a job that speaks to my abilities and interests. So this is a very roundabout way of saying maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I would I think I've told you this. I was like, this is like this movie's been 20 years in the making for me in a weird way. I was like, I can
Yeah.
never do this again. I
Yes.
I desperately want to make another movie, but I could never make another movie the way that we made this.
Yes.
Like there needs to be some level of like it was just too, I think everybody just was really worn out and
Yeah.
wearing too many hats. But I think you'd be surprised that like you really did do these jobs. The yeah, if you were to like be put in a team, like you got like blunt force experience in a lot of these roles. Um, but yeah, we will see. Okay, last question is from Steven, who is the
Okay.
editor.
Mhm.
Yeah. At what point during filming did you realize you guys may have a gem or something special of a movie? Also, what was your favorite moment while shooting?
I think the second night, um, you were filming Alan and Charlie having a very emotional moment. And I remember running lines with, I think Doug also interrupts that moment. And so I was running lines with Chris and Tim while you were filming. And I remember I was sitting on the couch right outside and you telling me after when you were coming out that this was an amazing scene and that you couldn't believe you had gotten the performances you did um, at that moment. And I could hear it because I was obviously like on the couch outside the door. Um, and I remember also feeling like, wow, that's very emotional. Like I can feel how like heightened everything felt in that room. And they were able to constantly bring it take after take. So I think that while I was not physically there, I was literally outside the room. I could tell that there was some sort of like energy of, wow, this might be something uh, magical that's happening. Sorry again. It's
You
very
can't hear that
excited.
loud on my end, but yeah,
Okay, good.
our baby is screaming.
It's definitely it's happy scoops for what it's worth. But yes,
I don't, was that the second night? I feel like that was a little bit later, but like maybe the third night or something. But yeah, that was definitely a
it was
defining.
early on, I think.
It was early on, and we shot that scene twice, and it definitely was like, yeah, that was the scene where I was like, um, I think it was like it was. I mean, I knew Luke had a wide range of acting. Well, I didn't know how good he was at like dramatic acting. Luke
Okay.
is like clearly like comedically. I think he's a comedic genius. I mean, there's a reason why he's been in like 100 College Humor videos and like he does comedy very well. But I did not realize how good he was at drama. And then the fact that like he was able, not just able to elicit, but also the fact that Tim like locked in this room through a
Yeah,
phone without seeing it was able to put on this super emotional performance.
with no acting experience.
No acting experience. Yeah, seeing that come to life and feeling how straight they were playing it, like how serious, and knowing that like this is both beautiful, sad, hilarious.
Mhm.
Like it's exactly what I was going for. Like these mix of, and I was just like, yes, this scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was also I think the scene for me where I was just like, this is
I think so. I can feel it.
This might be like truly something special. Um, what was your favorite moment while shooting? What Stephen also asked.
My favorite moment while shooting. So for context, I didn't do much of the direct shooting, just so that we have a like sense of like how I'm trying to, I guess, like buy time as I try to figure out this question because I was either, going to Best Buy or getting people outfitted for the next scene or getting food ready for like the next meal. I was practicing lines often with actors who were not on set. So a lot of times I was like honestly sleeping on the couch because I was so tired. Um, so I think that there are very few scenes where I'm actually on set. And it's hard for me to answer that question because I was often like doing other things and not on set. I will say when you're talking about Travis coming in with all the luggage, I remember that day because I was helping him bring stuff in, but you won't see me on camera because there's like 7 or 8 pieces of luggage that we had to have outside. It was like 100 degrees. I felt so bad for Trevor/Travis because he's wearing all these clothes and like such a sport about it, but it was so humid and gross. And we're handing him off all this luggage outside while we're crouched, including the disgusting trunks that he brings. Um, so I would say that that's a memorable part for me because it was kind of what it's such a small moment, but it's also so important to establishing who Travis is right away. And it you don't see anyone but Charlie and Travis, but there's me, my brother, I think Chris, who acts as Doug, is also back there helping to like move things along. And obviously you're shooting.
Yeah.
So I think that and I think we did it from 2 angles too. You had it from the inside and then we did it again from the outside. And so I think that was memorable because it's such a small moment, but it required literally hours and multiple people to shoot.
Yeah, and I would just add that it is maybe a small moment, but it's also like the introduction of the real conflict, which is Travis's
Yeah.
arrival. So it's a big moment. And
Well,
it
I
was
meant small in terms of time. It's only a couple
yeah,
seconds of the movie, and yet we had to put so much thought into it. But
yeah.
yes, it's a huge moment as well in terms of the story.
Yeah, and it's again like one of those scenes that I wish I was ready to film better because that first scene, like we filmed Charlie, we filmed Alan, we filmed Doug. I didn't know how much Travis was gonna bring in terms of physical comedy and like um yeah, if I could reshoot one scene, it would be that scene. I think we got enough coverage, but I don't know if it does justice to just like how much coordination went into that. Which is like you're saying,
A
like
lot of
pretty much everybody on set was like helping in that scene in some way or another.
In your defense, too, I think, so I don't know how much this has been talked about, but everyone was meeting each other for the first time. And then as the week went on, both on set and in the movie, in the story of the movie, people got to know each other better. And you kind of see that evolution. And so you're seeing um, Trevor meet Luke, Travis meet Charlie for kind of the first time. And you sort of sense that awkwardness and you sense that sort of like, I don't know how to like, introduce myself. I'm in character, but I'm also this person. I want to be taken seriously, but I know that you're a professional actor. I'm speaking from Trevor's point of view, and I'm assuming that this is how he felt. But you also see this evolution of all of them get closer and more comfortable with each other as the week goes on. So I think that there is this sort of like, I don't know how to, I can only describe it with hand movements. Um, but you see this sort of like gradual comfort that comes as the story moves on.
I think that was one of the benefits of shooting like semi-chronologically. Um,
Yeah.
but then I look back and I'm like the second half of the movie, at least when I did my rough cut, was like I was like, this is gold. And it was like the first half, like we didn't quite get that. vibe yet. But I think in post-production, by creating a new opening and doing a lot of
Mhm.
stuff, I think, we're starting to really make it work. But yeah, by the time like day two or three rolled around, like everybody was just like bringing it to a whole nother level. And there was a real beautiful like um camaraderie, I think, between cast, crew, and just
Yep,
everyone. And it shows on the screen. So,
that was you.
any last thoughts?
Um, Thank you if anyone has been listening to uh hearing our son just squeal in the corner. Any last thoughts? I think it was a singular experience for not just me, but for pretty much everyone on set. Um, and so I think that is really captured a lot in the film and probably comes to life a lot in these interviews. And yeah, it was probably one of the most memorable weeks of my life.
Mine too.
Yeah.
I hope that, yeah, I hope we get to present this to the world in the right way. And for me, I hope that it leads to getting to make another movie because I want to get the chance to make a movie with resources and a crew. But
Yeah. We
uh,
have had this discussion quite a bit in case anyone is watching this.
yeah, I don't know
So
if I'm going to
yes.
watch all of these hour-long interviews, but I think it's important because the story is pretty amazing. And yeah, like you and your brother never went on a film set before. You guys were my entire crew. Uh, and yeah, you were like absolutely vital. Every person was absolutely vital to making this happen. It was the synergy of like the seven of us in production and now adding this new post-production team. Um, yeah. Well, thank you very much. I will see you in 1 minute.
See you and yeah, thank you.
All right. Bye.